We have more users telling us that we should be charging more than anything else because they're saying, wait, you just saved me so much money. I'm growing my business. We had a customer, they wanted to grow their business by 25%. Within 40 days, they grew by 215% because now they could bid on more work. Right. All of a sudden, they're getting bids out, and our general contractors are getting subs to bid on more work because they're sharing their plans with them and their takeoffs. And subs are saying, look, I'm too busy. I can't do this whole takeoff. Now you share it with them and they get a number.
Don't take
That's
the
what-
bait there, man. Don't take the bait to increase the price because I'm sure you're familiar with the concept of the long tail.
Yeah.
You're better off getting a little piece of something that goes on for infinity than pricing out. Because I focus on the smaller builders here. The nature of the show, Builder Straight Talk, and talking to people like you, is how can we take knowledge from people that have done it and are doing it still? And the genesis of this was Sound Capital pulled me aside and said, look, young man, we're going to give you soup and a sandwich. We want you to interview successful builders. And the focus is on helping builders get better at what they do. So maybe it's somebody that's done 10 homes. They want to now take that to 25. They're at 25, they want to go to 50, whatever those incremental growths are. But they get the confidence from hearing from people like you, again, that have been there and done that and are still doing it. So like I'm pleading with you, don't hobble them at the knees because the smaller builders need all the incentive they can right now to A, be competitive, and to be able to take advantage of AI. It's the smaller builders that have to jump on and understand AI is going to be a tool that will assist them, not something that they need to be afraid of.
Welcome to the Builder Straight Talk podcast with your host, Michael Creaso. Get the unfiltered truth from the trenches of construction, real estate, and funding. This episode is made possible by our sponsor, Sound Capital, funding built for builders.
Hey, Patrick, so one of the things I'm trying to get my head around here is, I read through your bio and we had a Canadian singer up here. His name was Stompin' Tom Connors. And his big song was, I've Been Everywhere, Man. I've Been Everywhere, Man. And what maybe I'll do after, I'll send you a YouTube clip so you can see it. I'd like to chronologically go back to your beginning, let's say after university, and let's just briefly follow the timeline to where you are right now. Like even Superman started off, in his little rocket ship before he wore his cape. So being the Cape Crusader that you are, let's go back. You've graduated. What happens then and take us to where we are now?
Well, thank you, Michael. And I definitely have a long way to go. So I appreciate all those nice words. Graduated University of Miami, got a degree in finance and accounting. It was a business degree, dual major. Got my CPA license shortly thereafter. Went to work at Deloitte Touche, wanted to get some public accounting experience. Prior to college and during college, I worked at a family construction business called Coastal Construction. Worked in the field, worked in the office, sort of worked in all aspects there. But wanted to kind of earn my own stripes. So I went and did the public accounting route. Then 2008, sort of crisis hit. One of the goals I had at Deloitte was so I could work abroad. I wanted to go to London or Hong Kong or something, right? And that didn't work out with, recession that hit. So worked at Deloitte. One of my big clients was Lennar, the home builder. So got to see that, from a public company perspective, a little bit different angle. And then 2010 happened and the BP oil spill occurred. And I don't know how close you follow that, Michael, but there was all this talk of the oil getting a loop current of the Gulf of Mexico coming through the Florida Keys, which is where I was from. I grew up in the outdoors, fishing, diving, et cetera, and wanted to be the local company to be prepared and clean up. God forbid that oil ever made it. So long story short, got some oil skimmers together, built like 5 or 6 of them, and we went to work cleaning up. And that was really a eye opener for me on government. It was first dealing with Sarbanes-Oxley, if you're familiar with that, the accounting protocols after WorldCom and Enron blew up, and then the oil spill. And in both examples, I saw what I thought government had good intent, but it was really poorly implemented. And uh, I just said, what are we doing as a country? We can do so much better than this. And I was complaining. I was frustrated, talking about the debt, talking about immigration and healthcare and technology and all this, a lot of the same things we're talking about today. One of my best friends kind of said to me in about 20, I guess is late 2010, early 2011, Patrick, who the hell are you to complain? Do something about it. If people like you don't get involved in politics, who's going to do it? Thought about it, thought he was crazy. And after a couple months thinking about it, I said, you know what? Why not? What's the worst thing that happens? You lose an election. So I decided to run for office. So ran for Congress, representing the Palm Beach area of Florida. in Washington, D.C. And it turned out to be, at the time, the most expensive congressional race in history. It was like $30 million was spent on this, right? Another mini issue of why American politics is so broken that we won't get off track with. But ran for office, super expensive race, ended up winning that election, had a great team and group of supporters that helped out there, and served 2 terms in Congress. I was the youngest member of Congress at the time. So I spent a lot of work thinking about a lot of time thinking about the future of work and AI and the sharing economy and all these things that were happening. And was thinking really from, that government perspective, how do we prepare for the jobs of tomorrow? So anyway, fast forward again, and I rejoined our family construction business. Was able to come back. It's called Coastal Construction. We've been blessed to be in a great market. Now the largest general contractor in Florida. We do a lot of high rise, multifamily, commercial type stuff. Have a division of single family homes as well. But what I realized is all of a sudden I had a fresh set of eyes. Right, I'd been gone, I don't know, 10 years or something, and we'd been doing things exactly the same ways when I left. And I said, we're bigger, but same processes. So I went through our financials. Single biggest piece of overhead in our company was estimating. Started going through that. And I realized that 50 to 60% of our team's time was doing takeoffs, right? Coloring in essence. I used to do takeoffs with my grandfather as a kid. I had a ruler like this, right? We'd sit there with the printed plans and yellow pad, do our takeoffs. Today we do it with a mouse. And that's when the light bulb went off. Holy cow. If a human can look at the plans and see the difference in the wood and the metal and the concrete and the bedroom, the bathroom, the hallway, so can a computer if you train it correctly. So set on a journey to automate takeoffs by using AI, and ended up starting a company called Togal.AI that takes weeks of work and compresses it into mere seconds with greater accuracy. And that's where I've been spending a lot of my time these days, is in this world of AI as it relates to construction, specifically for estimating. We spun out a company called CodeComply that automates code compliance for your fire and life safety and ADA compliance. So in the construction tech world now, and loving every minute of it.
Wow. Let's go back to the Togal part. So explain to me, I'm a builder, let's say, and I'm putting together a project. And so what am I doing? I'm uploading a source file of my plans, what I think my budget is. Like, walk me through how a builder would actually use that.
Yes. So our typical profile is general contractors and subcontractors. We do have some developers, some architects, some owners reps, but generally speaking, and it's companies of all sizes. We have mom and pops doing a million or 2 million a year in revenues. And some of our biggest companies are doing 14, 15 billion a year. So it really runs the gamut. They are uploading PDFs in any format. It could be a schematic set of plans. They could literally upload a sketch on a napkin if it has a scale, or it could be fully 100% construction documents, right? Whatever you have, to upload that image file to Togal.
Hold on, I got to
And
get my head around that, Patrick. So, relative to the gin and tonic I had there with a lime beside it, would that give it the perspective that it needs?
even a couple watermarks, we're going to try to see through that wherever your ice or lemon fell. Okay. And we just need a scale, right? And the user can manually do that, or we will automatically try to determine that scale, and make sure the user agrees, because obviously that's a critical component. And you click a button, and within, usually under 10 seconds, you're going to have your net area, your gross area. You're going to have all your linear takeoffs. You're going to have all your counts, whether that's a fire sprinkler, a toilet, a sink, a tub, whatever. And then we're going to automatically classify those rooms. Is it a hallway? Is it a bathroom, a bedroom? Now, the user can customize those automatically too. So just say they're a flooring company. It can be a vinyl floor, a wood floor, a finished concrete floor, whatever that might be, and start to classify rooms. Drywallers are classifying 2-hour fire rated wall, waterproof, whatever that might be. So anyway, click of a button, you've got all of your spaces, your areas, right? All your takeoff done. Now it's this dance, we call it, with the user, where then they can do their classifications and sorting the way they want. We have a feature where we partnered with some of the large language models. And so all the text prompts and all the little notes in your spec book that you uploaded, for example, now you can have a conversation with it and just say, Michael, you're a painter. And you say, hey, is there any, any unique paint types I need to be leery of, or can you please put together a scoping document for all the paint types, referenced in the plans or spec book, and have a conversation. You can get it to generate RFIs, generate scopes, help prevent any major busts. We had a painter that thankfully was able to prompt correctly, and there was a ceiling paint that he never accounted for, and it saved him $300,000 on the bid last minute because he caught it. So things like that, all of a sudden, all that data, all that text, everything that's in a big set of documents is now at your fingertips and being digested by AI. And the key is that the human, the user, is in the driver's seat. You're still the pilot. You get a co-pilot next to you that's really helping you out, giving you advice, suggesting things, and doing a lot of that mundane work.
So let me jump back to so one of the things that you said that it's a dance. Is this the kind of dance that I have to wear a tuxedo? And what I mean by that is this more geared towards, let's say, the high end developer type builder, or can the mom and pop use it? And that, I guess, the second question to that, is it a subscription base or is it based on per application that I upload?
We kept it super simple. It's $250 per user per month, right? So basically 3 grand a year. Very simple. You can use it, a million times in a month or never, right? It's very simple, very, very easy pricing plan.
Wow, I figure that the cost savings alone must pay for that within like a month. It's almost like you're making money on it. That
We have more users telling us that we should be charging more than anything else because they're saying, "Wait, you just saved me so much money. I'm growing my business." We had a customer, they want to grow their business by 25%. Within 40 days, they grew by 215% because now they could bid on more work. Right? All of a sudden, they're getting bids out, and our general contractors are getting subs to bid on more work because they're sharing their plans with them and their takeoffs. And subs are saying, "Look, I'm too busy. I can't do this whole takeoff." Now you share it with them and they get a number. So
Yeah, don't take the bait there, man. Don't take the bait to increase the price because I'm sure you're familiar with the concept of the long tail.
yeah,
You're better off getting a little piece of something that goes on for infinity than pricing out. Because I focus on the smaller builders here. The nature of the show, Builder Straight Talk, and talking to people like you, is how can we take knowledge from people that have done it, been there, done it, and are doing it still. And the genesis of this was Sound Capital pulled me aside and said, "Look, young man, we're going to give you soup and a sandwich. We want you to interview successful builders." And the focus is on helping builders get better at what they do. So maybe it's somebody that's done 10 homes. They want to now take that to 25. They're at 25, they want to go to 50, whatever those incremental growths are. But they get the confidence from hearing from people like you, again, that have been there and done that and are still doing it. So, like, I'm pleading with you, don't hobble them at the knees because the smaller builders need all the incentive they can right now to A, be competitive, and to be able to take advantage of AI. Because what I'm seeing right now, and to your point about we've been building homes traditionally, stick and wood forever. And I guess the folly is there's a story I heard once about grandma, and everybody gathers around grandma, and it's Thanksgiving, and they're doing the turkey, and they bring down the ritual pot, and I'm just making up numbers here. What do I know about cooking? Let's say it's 14 inches, right? And they bring it down like it's the holy covenant. They put it down on the table. Everybody gathers around, all the women, and now they go through the preparations of the turkey. They put it in that pot, and the youngest says, "Why are we using this pot, not one of the other ones?" Well, that's because it's always been done that way. So it's not a matter about expediency or what's best. It's this is the way we've always done it. Let's not fudge with the formula because it works, as archaic as it may be. And what I've seen over the past month, and not by design, I've interviewed AI guys that are specializing it, and they're doing modular homes, they're doing laser printed homes, they're doing things like you're doing. And it seems that we're at that point now in the building world where it's not like when a plane takes off and you've got a gradual trajectory on takeoff. I think there's going to be a spontaneous jump, a quantum jump, if you will, in the way building is going to be done.
yeah.
And it's going to be driven by AI. So taking this back full circle to my, please pleading with you, it's the smaller builders that have to jump on and understand AI is going to be a tool that will assist them, not something that they need to be afraid of. Am I on the right track there?
100%. And I want to go back to what you said because this is the opposite of the tuxedo crowd, right? My grandfather was a painter after World War II. He was in the 101st Airborne, and after the war was painting radio towers, moved to the Florida Keys because he found a good job and fell in love with it. And so, our roots are, with the trades, and my dad was a union carpenter, union laborer. We grew up in and around the trades, and respect the hell out of that small business that's trying to grow. And that to me is the coolest part, right? Look, of course, we got the big E&R logos and they're sexy and that's great. But it's that mom and pop, it's that mid-sized company that's trying to grow their business. That technology can make a world of difference for them because if, as you just said, Michael, you want to grow your business, how do you do? You got to get more revenues. How do you get more revenues? First thing, you can start bidding on more work. And even if you can afford to hire another estimator for, 75,000 a year, 100,000 a year, whatever the market rate is that you have to pay, a lot of the junior folks out there, you tell them they gotta go color for a living, they gotta click and count toilets for 2 days and then, draw a rectangle. Like, what are you talking about? I'm an engineer, like, I wanna add value, I wanna do something different, so it's hard to recruit for estimating jobs in many cases, so now all of a sudden you've got technology, and obviously I'm biased toward ours, but whatever the technology is, now all of a sudden it's a sexy job that you can attract some great talent for, where they're using their brain for the value engineering and the scoping and the bid level and living, really getting into the job and understanding the problem that's going to be solved. And now they're adding value to that client, helping you win more work. So not only can you grow your business because you can bid on 10x more work because the takeoff is instant, but now your win rate is going up because you're spending the human hours on the valuable thing. So I'm all about helping that little company, keeping this affordable, making sure it's hugely scalable for them because look, I think the cost of knowledge is going to zero, right? I mean, that's obvious, right? It's the doctors, the lawyers, the accountants, the architects, that these large language models and AI are going to massively disrupt. And the folks in the trades, the mechanics, the electricians, the plumbers working with their hands are going to be hugely sought after. We got to help them grow. And we can do a lot with construction and helping people's lives.
Well, that's the big void, and I'm sure you must have seen that in your time serving. The trades, I think, for the longest time, have been looked down upon,
Mhm.
and it's all about getting a university degree in something that's relatively useless and coming out in debt, 150, 200,000. And I think we've created country clubs for kids to be amused in. They're being indoctrinated. They're not really learning anything. And then they hit the streets wondering why they can't get a job. Why am I still living in my parents' basement? How come I can't get a girlfriend or a boyfriend? I have nothing to offer. And I don't mean to make light of this, but we have a whole generation right now of kids that are lost with no direction. And I think we're partially responsible for allowing this to happen. When I look at the trades, you can jump in an apprentice, and within a year, you could be making almost six figures, right? With no debt. And when you come out, a plumber, an electrician, you've got your papers. Give it a year, 2 years, you learn the ropes. You can now start your own business. I mean, holy jumping, man. If I were to do it all over again, I would definitely gravitate towards the trades as opposed to, I'm not bad mouthing university when I went because, yeah, I learned some stuff and it filled up the empty cobwebs in my head, and I can be pretty entertaining at cocktail parties. But in terms of actually being able to support a family, raise a family, and contribute back to society, anyone that's a builder, man, they're offering so much. And I think we need to do two things. Number one, we need to instill into this generation, the ones that are in high school right now, that this is definitely a career path worth exploring. We need to bring home ec and shop class back into the school so kids can actually tactile feel something. So to your point about AI, definitely that is going to be like the hammer that you're using, but it's going to be a digital hammer in conjunction with your smarts and the ability to take that knowledge and apply it. And I see that's one thing that's crucially missing right now in education.
I think you're spot on. Education is going to get turned on its head, or it better get turned on its head for the sake of society and humanity. What worked 200 years ago is not going to keep working the next 200 years. There was some recent legislation in the U.S. It hasn't quite passed, but basically what they're starting to do is expand Pell Grants into the trades. So those grants that were traditionally for college, 2 4 year degrees, now all of a sudden you can get for the apprentice programs and being a plumber, electrician, whatever that might be. So I think it's a great use of government helping to steer the ship in that direction for those trades. And that's number one. But number two, I think education really needs to focus on the creativity, on the interpersonal skills, on the human skills. on the basics of not, memorizing a bunch of things that are going to be at your fingertips because of AI and technology, but really know how do you put it into place? So now you're a plumber, you pass the apprenticeship program, you're making good money, you want to go start your own, hang your own shingle, start your own company. How do you do it? Like, where do you start? As a young 20-year-old, like it's so overwhelming to even think about that, right? Colleges need to be preparing entrepreneurs, I think. How do you pay your taxes? How do you hire? How do you get an office? What's the lease look like, right? Like all these basic things that are like, people just put up their hands and say, I don't want to do it. I don't know how to do it. And
Even basic finance, Patrick. How do I balance my checkbook? Like, they
yeah,
don't even get into let's call it the
basics.
applicable skills that I need when I hit the street, right? And again, I don't think AI is as fearful as we're making it out to be. Like, I kind of fought it because I had visions of Terminator. And you're going to laugh whenever I use AI. I always say, "Could you please, whatever it is?" And then I always say, "Thank you and have a great day." Because when they do come, maybe they'll be
I was
merciful
the
on
nice
me.
one to you. Yeah.
Yeah, remember I was the nice guy that sent you a bouquet of digital flowers on your birthday. I think that there's going to be the definite need for AI. It's there. Taking that back to education, you can't use the tool if you don't have the critical skills to apply in AI. So part of it is, how can I ask the articulate questions?
Right.
And being able to ask the question means I need to be able to think. And so we need to take it right back to the beginning. We need to teach kids how to be critical thinkers. And if they're critical thinkers, they're not going to fall for all the bullshit that they see in the news, because they'll go, "Hey, wait a minute.
Yeah.
Let's connect the dots here." And I'll get off my box here in a minute, and we'll segue back into building, but it's so prevalent, and I see it here. Kids are lost, and they just get sucked into that void. And you know this by being in governance, that we're a house divided. You're either a Republican, you're a Democrat, and gone are the days where we could actually hold hands and focus on what the challenges are and do it bipartisanly, as opposed to, you're an orange-haired guy, or, you're a white-haired guy. And it's like Hatfields and McCoy, and great, maybe you win the feud that day, but at the cost of the country.
Yeah. And the whole country's losing the war, unfortunately.
Yeah.
And,
And,
and
I'm the humble Canadian here, so why Sound Capital hired me, it's obviously not for my good looks. But when I look south of the border and see what's happening, like, America was always that shiny city on the hill. It was that dream that every country in the world aspired to go to, right? And I'm getting kind of tearful here. My parents are immigrants. They came off the boat from Ukraine back in the 50s. So my mother was in her little village. The Russians invaded. There was bloodshed. And their life story was literally a movie that you wouldn't believe today, because it was just so far fetched what they had to do to finally get to Canada, ultimately, where my dad started his own little business and it grew. And in essence, took his little humble family into upper middle class. But that was from using his smarts and his ability to apply what he knew. Then he built a business, right? And it takes us back to this whole drive, that entrepreneurial spirit that has to be cultivated at that young age. So anyway, lane jump. Let's jump into technology right now.
Michael, if I could just add one thing that I think is
Absolutely.
so important. And who the hell knows, right? I mean, this is all the things are happening in real time, and who knows how AI transforms the world. But I, I think a key thing of what you said there is that younger generation and their confidence, and they're getting pulled in so many directions. And social media, right, it is probably not helping, doing them any favors, right? And technology, there's so much peer pressure in so many ways. There was, what's that saying, that the history might not repeat itself, but it sure does rhyme, right? That the Mark Twain quote. And you know, I wouldn't be surprised if we start to go back to a world where schooling really starts to do away with a lot of the digital equipment that's in everyone's face, and really get back to the round table where people are talking, where they're communicating, where they're building relationships, they're getting to know each other, they're presenting, they're pushing each other face to face, and not over Zoom and not over text, but kind of going full circle back, because I think it's that human component that is missing in so many of the young generation's life, and we've let technology just take it over. And I think AI is going to start to automate so much that's in our life that they're going to have the free time to do that, to embrace those kind of things. So I hope that's where we're going, because I think it's alarming how lost some of the younger generation is right now. And I hope technology in a weird, perverse way gets us on the right track because it actually frees up time for them to do that.
Yeah, I think, since we'll just pull on the string a bit more until the suit unwinds, but if you don't have the basics, right? So, big shiny, Patrick, I'm sure you've got a stable of, shiny Porsches out in your driveway, but it would mean nothing if you don't know how to put the key in and start the car, right? So before you take that sucker onto the highway and give it hell to the point where the paint's burning off, you need to know how to shift the gears, right? Well, even shifting gears is something that's lost now. We have a generation that doesn't know what a standard is. So you want a burglary device for your car? Buy a standard, because 70% of the population doesn't know what to do with it.
Right.
So taking it back to education, being able to hold a pencil and feel the tactile feel of your brain sending a message to your hand, formulating the thought, which is now being articulated through your hand, through the lead onto paper, as opposed to being like a chicken pecking at something for food. Again, I don't mean to be punishing education, but I think maybe educators' hearts were in the right place, but their brains were scattered into the four winds. Is it for cost cutting? Is it for convenience? Is it for, dare I say, profit? Because they're obviously being influenced to buy certain things. But, to your point, and getting back to the AI thing, you need to be able to ask the intelligent questions to get AI to do what you need it to do. And that's part of it. So the prompting comes from being a critical thinker. We got to go right back to the beginning. We got to bring in classics like, Shakespeare, books that made you think,
Mhm.
and they're on the ban list right now, Solzhenitsyn, like all these things that they're classics for a reason. The Bible, there's something that nobody wants to read. Dare I throw that out there? But one day we're going to wake up and these will all be banned books,
Yep. Yeah.
right?
Yeah, there's some pretty tough passages in the Bible. You're
Yeah.
gonna start banning things, you better be careful.
Yeah. So anyway, lane change. I'm turning right now. Tell me about what you're doing with your part of the AI, not the coding stuff, but you're doing something with the you're changing the fundamental building blocks of construction because you're using polymers and recycling to build these blocks. So let's go deeper into that. Tell me more about Renco. I take it Renco is that company that encompasses the construction side.
Yes, it's called Renco, it stands for Renewable Composites, and it's made of recycled glass, recycled plastic, calcite, limestone dust, and then a resin that holds it together. These blocks, number one, are a unique new material, and they are built like Lego blocks. There's a male and a female end, and they all fit together. They are extremely strong. They're extremely light, very fast to build with. They're green. They're about 80% greener than traditional materials, and it's about 20% less expensive. So covers a lot there. And I don't know if you can see behind me here, Michael, this little mock-up here, but these are the blocks. That's what they look like. And one of the geniuses of it is that it could be a 2-inch block or it could be a 48-inch block or anything in the middle. So whatever you design, we can come with a block configuration basically to fit your needs. So it's not prefab or modular in the sense that it can only look like model A, B, or C or something, right? It's whatever you want. And we'll come up with the block layout, and the plans are color coded. They show up to the site ready to go. And it's the full building envelope. It's the walls, it's the roof, it's the decking, it's the joist, it's the headers, it's everything you need for that envelope. And then you can finish it however you want. You can put a stucco on it. You can put a cladding. Hell, you can put marble on the outside, right? If you want something, some fancy building. On the inside, you put your drywall, paint it whatever trim you want, and no one knows the difference, right? No one knows what's behind a wall, typically. So, innovative new building material. Took us 10 years to get it approved. We had to do about 450 different tests to get this approved. And one thing we didn't appreciate, and boy, I could write a book on this one. We took for granted, think, oh, we're this big construction company or whatever, right? We're going to get this thing approved in a couple years, and it's no problem. We do some tests and it'd be done. When you zoom out, there's three ways to build, basically, right? You have concrete, you have metal, and you have wood. And that's basically the structure of a building, and maybe some combination of those materials. We took for granted that we were introducing the fourth building material in the world that's ever been approved. And in some ways, I would say I'm grateful. We all, as an advanced society, should be grateful for that bureaucracy to make sure that what we're living in or what we're flying in or driving in or whatever has been scrutinized over and over and over. And that decade of testing was gruesome. It was very difficult, all sorts of tests. But It's for a reason, right? It's for public safety. And now we have a building material that has all of your fire and off gassing testing approved, hurricane, Miami-Dade here in South Florida approved, all your earthquake seismic testing, snow loads, insulation, right? All the various things. Termites do not eat it. Water does not deteriorate the product. You put it in the ocean for 5 years, pull it out and build with it. It doesn't matter. Nothing grows on it, no mold, right? So all these different tests we've done. And because of that, now we're getting unbelievable insurance ratings. So our builder's risk, for example, is about 50% less. And the long-term carry, you know, insurance is much less because the lifespan is so much longer. So really cool product. I think it's one of many new products being introduced that will, I dare use the word revolutionize, but it's been 125 years since we had a new building material on reinforced concrete. We are past due for some innovation and better ways to build that are better for the environment, that are stronger, that are going to last longer, fast as hell to build with. We can do a floor a day with this material, right? You got a 3-story building up in a week, basically,
Yeah.
right? I mean, maybe a couple of weeks, but like the structure's up right away.
So do I, from a builder's perspective, again, talk to me like I'm 6. I won't be offended here. I come up with my drawing, right? Here's what I want to build. Or is my drawing done within your purview of how you design and how you build? Or do I take my concept to you and you say, okay, here's how we can formulate it using our
The latter.
proprietary system, if you
You
will?
go buy the land, design the house or apartment or whatever you're building. And then you have a set of schematic plans, say, bring it to us. Say, hey, Patrick, I like to use Renco. What do you think? What's it going to cost? And we'll look at the plans. We'll run a little model. A couple hours later, we'll say, hey, we may have to move this wall 1 inch or this thing, 2 inches here. But here's how many blocks it's going to take. Here's the ideal format. And we can get this out to you in, X amount of time. And here's the budget for it.
So the build then is in relationship to the length of your block. So it's not like I'm on site and I got to cut 2 inches off. Like you've already got it designed to the.
We ship the exact blocks to fit that building that was approved, right, by your local government.
This kind of reminds me of, you remember as a kid, you could buy a log home in a tube
Yep.
and you built up your little log home. It seems like this is very similar to that. What about, so I build, let's say, I don't know, 1,500 square walkout bungalow, back split, let's say. What about the roofing structure? Is that done by you as well, or am I
So we
working
have
with
a
a
flat
roofing company?
roof structure that's fully approved right now. Joist system, flat roof system that we use. We just finished a 96 unit apartment complex in Palm Beach, Florida. Flat 3-story walk up building, flat roof. Again, Miami-Dade hurricane approved and flat roof and all that. So we have that. If you want a pitched roof, you can work with wood trusses, or if you have a metal truss system you prefer, you can work with that. And we have a pocket that would fit into that truss would fit into and bolt in. So you don't have to use our system if you prefer to use your own. We have a flat roof system.
So does your system even rely on trusses then?
No, it does not.
Okay. Wow. Like I said at the beginning of this conversation, we're at that point now where the technology is converging and there's going to be that explosion. And I think there's so many different ideas that are racing for ours will be the new standard. It will be the stick and nail that we've been doing for the past, hundreds and hundreds of years. Right?
I think you're absolutely right. We're hitting that inflection point and that sort of paradigm shift where construction's been a laggard, right? You've seen the studies we all have that over the most recent one I saw was over the last 50 years has been a 0% increase in productivity in construction. I think that's about to change,
Yeah.
right? The old saying, the Empire State Building, right? It took, not saying, the fact, the Empire State Building took 13 months to build. Today, that's going to be many years to build. But I think in 10 years from now, we're going to get back to a place where we could accomplish that. And we're going to be able to build a lot more. And I think AI is going to transform the way we build. And you might think I'm crazy, Michael, but I think in 5 years from now, if you want to build a new building, you're going to go to a prompt and you're going to have 3 inputs. You're going to put the address in, you're going to put the budget that you have, and then you put that style and model that you want. You want a 3-bedroom house with 3 bathrooms? Put that in the prompt. You gave it the address. It now knows the zoning and the density of what can be built, right? How high of a building, right? You gave it a budget. So is it, a 5-star, whatever, Ritz Carlton, or is it workforce housing? And you told it what you want. And the problem's been solved. If you tell it's a 3-bedroom house with, whatever, 3 bathrooms, a kitchen, and a laundry room, once you've got a basic layout, there's not an infinite amount of ways to run the plumbing, for example, or the electric. There's 2 or 3 general ways that you're going to do it. There's a drain, there's a slope, there's a vent. Like some basics you're going to follow. And with AI, we now have hundreds of thousands of these homes that have been approved and been built. So now the AI is going to be smarter than any engineer that you can ever hire because it can remember 100,000 different layouts and then give you that most efficient layout that's up to code and up to spec in your local, municipal government. So think of what that unlocks now. You're taking 2 years of pre-construction, you're compressing it into a prompt in 2 seconds. And now humans can focus on the creativity, on building better sustainable communities that are more livable, more walkable, that are more affordable, right? And think of that creativity where we can again go back to the days where we're proud of the community we live in. And it's not just driven by bottom line dollars and cents, but it's something that's beautiful, right? It's a beautiful piece of art. I mean, that's what architecture, is at its finest. And I think we're gonna get back to that.
Yeah, you made me I was holding back a laugh, and it wasn't at you or at your expense. It just
Don't
you're
worry.
talking about the future, and I just had this vision of doodly doo walking through the mall after seeing a movie. "Hey, honey, let's build a house." And you just go up to the kiosk, I put in my credit card, pick up my design, "Oh, here's where our lot is," just to enter a couple keys. The next thing I know, it's like an IKEA thing.
Uh,
The big shipping container pulls up in my place, and a house is being built. And taking AI to the logical extension, maybe to the absurd, that package arrives with robots even, and they're doing the assembly.
mhm. I mean, have you seen the new robotics? I mean,
Yeah.
their dexterity and what they're doing, I mean, it's unbelievable how far it's come just in the last 2 or 3 years, and I mean, of course, that's still just the beginning.
So
Uh
I look at in terms of going back to just the basics of building, and one of the stats I've heard, and you probably know this better than I do, for every 5 builders that are retiring right now, only 1.3, I don't even know what that means. What one? It's a builder and somebody in a wheelchair. 1.5. I don't know where they come up with these fractions, but for every 5 that are retiring, 1.5 are entering the trades. And the American stat is, I think, if you go full on for the next 20 years and you're building a million homes a year, you're still going to be behind the curve.
Right.
So we're coming to this point where I think it's the perfect storm where not enough labor, great demand, and for the ones that are still doing it, I think that gives them the opportunity to be more picky about the jobs that they're going to take. So does that compound the problem even more that you've got less skilled labor doing less labor because they're being more particular about it? And when I ask that question, is what you're bringing to the market, which is basically Lego bricks, I'm using your words, not mine. Does that simplify the process that I don't need as large as a workforce and as skilled? And I don't mean that in a derogatory way, but I don't need as skilled a labor force to be able to put this together.
Yeah, well, a lot to unpack there. I'll start just by saying I think AI is going to follow the trend of technology for the last, couple 100 years, where, horse and buggy was alarmed when cars came out. What ended up happening, more roads were built, more people drove cars than horse and buggy. When ATM came out, the bank tellers all thought they were going to lose their jobs. There's more bank tellers than ever today because there's more branches, right? It's more affordable. And I think same thing's gonna happen in construction, right? And if you think about technology at its core, it's increasing productivity or it wouldn't be moving forward. No one would accept it if it didn't increase productivity. And, people always, have fears that, oh, technology is gonna take my job and there'll be poverty and people on the streets. But if you look back over the last 40, 50 years and, mid 1950s or so, there was roughly like, I think 40, 50% poverty like around the world. Then in the '80s, that number got to like the 20 percentile. Today, it's in the low teens globally. So despite all the technology that's been introduced, right, and all the craziness, poverty has gone down. More people have entered the middle class around the world than, in any time over the last decade, right? So it, people are moving up. Now, in our country, in the US and of course, we need to do a much better job. And there are people falling behind. And there is a hugely concerning problem in the division between rich and poor. I don't want to get into politics on this show. It's got to be addressed, and technology is very much responsible for that. But there's political things that need to be addressed on that, on top of technology, because we're not necessarily going to stop it. And I believe what's going to happen with technology is since it's making people more productive and people's salaries are based on their output, on their productivity, with better technology, they are more productive and therefore their salaries are going to go up. So we are going to continue to see that curve. And I believe even faster where more people start making more money because they know how to use AI. You can't put your head in your sand and ignore it and say, "Ah, it's past me, and I'm 50 years old. I'm not going to learn anything new." No, 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 no. It's not too late. We're in the very beginning of this AI, wave. It's not too late. There are so many classes that are free, that are online, that are accessible, and just take that first step. Just like anything else, when you decide to become a plumber or decide to become a painter, it was overwhelming. You just did it though. You just started and you learned. Same thing with AI. Just dive in and start somewhere, and it's not as overwhelming once you start doing it. So I think it leads to abundance. I'm in the camp that AI is going to lead to more construction, to better construction. We're going to need more people in it that are more skilled. Will robotics help ease the labor and the back pain because they're not lifting the, I don't know, 100 pound, whatever off the ground? There's a robot to help them. Sure. Yes, that's good though. That's not bad. Right. Are the Renco blocks behind me easier to assemble? Yes. And could a robot probably do a lot of it? Yes. But now you're going to have a human that's managing that robot, right? That's still helping here and there, but they're managing the robot, and they're getting paid more for that because they built an entire house in a day managing a robot, not breaking their ass installing
Yeah.
concrete blocks or Renco blocks, whatever it might be.
I'm I think in pictures. Yeah. So when I'm formulating a thought, I can see it. Then I have to then conceptualize it into words, right? And something that you were saying there, it triggered the climate bell, climate alarmism. And I guess just by the way I framed it, I've just tilted my hand so you could see where I'm coming with this. Um, you look at some of the most expensive homes on the planet are on the coast. They're right on the beach. And oh yeah, but the water levels are rising. We're going to be flooded out. It's a funny thing that humans are resilient enough that when they see the water rising, what do? They move back 5 feet.
Right.
Right. So again, I'm not trying to make a mockery of this. When I unpack what you're saying about AI and the impact that it's going to have, I think it's the same kind of thing. Yes, we can look to the horizon, but we can see it's coming. So it's upon you, not you, but personally, me, my kids, whatever, it's on us to say, okay, it's coming. What are we going to do about it? How are we going to embrace it? Because it's not going to go away.
Right.
Right. So what's the best thing I can do now, maybe as a parent or as an employer, to embrace this thing? Because the genie's out of the bottle, being cliche. How can I adapt it to my business so that my business will prosper, my employees will be happy, and at the end of the day, everybody goes home to their home and they've got money to spend and life is good?
Yeah.
Or am I looking at that too simplistically?
I don't think so. I think it's like anything else. You just got to get started, right? Go to Google Gemini, go to GPT. There's dozens of the large language models out of China and the US and other places. Some are free, some are a few bucks a month. And start looking at it every single day. And whatever silly or tough question you have, ask it, right? And start learning the responses. I have signed up to 5 or 6 different newsletters now, all sort of in the AI space, that give me new feeds, new information, new companies that come out. And I try them out, right? I'd sign up, I take maybe 2 minutes or 20 minutes a day or whatever it is, and log in and, see what the hell it is. And it just it's amazing how fast and how good the technology is getting. And I think most people would have that experience. I think the key is, whatever your industry or trade or role is finding and thinking of the way that that can influence what you do and connecting the dots. And, by the way, there's going to be, millions of new companies started by just leveraging these large language models and the knowledge that they have and applying it to your business. And just like we started a company called Togal, right? That does takeoffs. Like, it's a very niche business. Some guy, smart guy in Silicon Valley doesn't even know what a takeoff is, right? You could be the smartest guy at Google. You don't know. You've never solved that problem. There's millions of those ideas out there that I think are going to be very lucrative businesses. So I would implore everyone in our industry to think of it something that just drives them crazy, and start messing around with AI and to see if there's a business opportunity there for them. Like, could they start a little tech company themselves, and instead of being scared of it, use it to empower themselves? A lot of opportunity right at our fingertips right now.
You just triggered a memory to my dad way, way, way back when. And there was like a salesman knocked on his door at his business, and he was selling stock. Like he was actually going door to door in an industrial area selling stock. And my dad laughed. He said, what am I going to do with paper? Like, what the hell is this IBM stuff that you're Like,
Uh,
it's exactly the same thing. You really don't know which one of those is going to be the winner. And I think, again, going back to the beginning of the conversation, they're not at the starting line. They're running, and some have head starts, some don't, but there are definitely going to be winners in this arena. And from a building perspective, the subsequent winners are going to be the ones that adapt it and use it in their businesses. So let's go back to what you were saying with Togal for a second. If I'm a newbie and I come to the site, do you actually have tutorials that will teach me more about AI and how I would tie it into my business?
Yes, we do. We have a YouTube channel with tutorials, and we are continuing to get better and add more content, but trying to gear it toward the painter versus the drywaller versus the GC, et cetera. So it's very tailored for that use case of how they'd like to use it. But dozens of YouTube videos are out there. Also on our website, we have a self-guided tour. It's about 2, 3 minutes, and you follow along, click the buttons as it prompts you to, and you learn the software. We only have like 19 buttons in the whole tool. So it's a full takeoff tool. Every manual takeoff tool that you would have ever used in Bluebeam or OnScreen or PlanSwift or whatever you use, we do. But we also have the AI layered in. And one of the really cool features that a lot of people like, Michael, is the fact that it's web based, is live. So you upload your plans, it takes a few seconds. You click a button, it labels them and sorts them. A couple more seconds. Now you want to share it with 200 subcontractors or whatever, click a button and it shares that. And there's different permissions, just like Google Sheets, if you're familiar with that, where you can give someone edit, permissions or view only or comment only. Like we have, different permissions. So if you're trying to get a bid really quick out the door and you need some people, then vendors or whatever to bid on it, you can share your takeoff with them. They see it. You're a drywaller, you know what it costs to install. You just got how much drywall is in this job. I'll give you a number in 24 hours if you're willing to share the takeoff with me, right? So anyway, that collaboration has been great. Companies that have people working remote, different offices also love it because it's live. So you could be doing, say, the exterior, I could be doing interior, and someone else is doing, whatever, another part of the job. We're live in that document, living and breathing. And then our boss, say, can see all of our takeoffs, how they came together and say, oh, hey, you guys missed this, piece, or you double counted that, and they can see it and it's visual. So very easy to learn, very few buttons, very intuitive. And we try to put a lot online for people to do it from their house if they don't want to talk to our humans, but we do have human, customer success reps and all that.
Is there another level to this? I'm going to throw out the idea of like a mastermind where builders are actually being collaborative with one another and they're exploring designs within your arena. Let's call it what it is. Like within your playground, you've got the toys. Could you create such an environment that builders could actually, here's a design idea that I had. What do you think? And collaboratively, they're working on it. Because if I'm a builder in Colorado, I really don't care what somebody in North Carolina is doing.
Right.
Right? So you're not my competition. So I can here's what's working for me, what's working for you. Is that on the books at all?
100%. And I think AI will play a role in this, giving recommendations of improvements. The AI is seen, millions of buildings around the world and bringing those ideas to your fingertips. Hey, Michael, you like A, B, or C? Here's an alternative, right? It's worked in other places. Do you want to see it? AI will be very good at that, enabling the humans to come together and do it like you just suggested. I also think, 1,000 years ago, whatever, if you were building a church in your town, the architect and the builder was all the same person, right? And it was a lifetime of a job, and they worked there and lived there, and it was a lot more collaboration and focus. And I wouldn't be surprised if we kind of go full circle too, where there's more collaboration in our industry because, no offense to the lawyers, but it's gotten so tough, and the architects have their thing and the engineers have their thing, the developers and the owners and the subs and the vendor, like, and we all have these little legal silos. We're all scared to communicate and collaborate. But I think technology is going to help break down a lot of those barriers. And to your point, you have to bring those recommendations where the builders and the architects are working together to solve a problem to create a better product that's more affordable. And the trade partner saying, no, 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 why would you do, why would you do it like that? Here's a much better way, guys. Don't tell me how to do it. Let me help inform you in the field how this is going to really take place. Prevent all the RFIs and all these shop drawings that happen way too late and bid busts and change orders and all that. Let's do it right from the beginning and have everyone collaborate. And I think again AI is going to do that because it's all at our fingertips. We're not emailing back and forth and documents getting lost.
Yeah, I think it's almost going to be a matter of survival because if we're not getting enough new people into the trades, you're going to have to collaborate to come up with a better way to do it.
Right.
Right.
Yep.
Let's get back to your building method. In terms of cost, if I were you and I both show up on the same street, you're building your type of home, I'm building, stick and nail on my lot. Let's say they're both, 1,200 square foot bungalows. Cost per square foot, are we more or less the same? At what point does your technology and the way that you're build take off and leave me in the dust, if there is such a thing?
Yeah, so right now we're about 20% less expensive apples to apples for that same 1,200-foot bungalow. And we basically have two blocks, one that would compete with a concrete, building if that's needed, and one that would compete with a wood structure if that's what you're sort of competing against or the code requires. The one that competes with wood is a little bit thinner. It's only 6 inches instead of 8 inches. It is hollowed out like a skeleton, basically. And with those savings, again, it's about 20% less expensive just on the cost. That's in part, I should say, mainly because of the labor is unskilled labor. That doesn't account for the speed savings. It doesn't account for the carry costs that the developer, you're not paying interest on that extra 2 months, say it's that much faster. But what we've started to do is remove some of the trades where in that skeletal block, now you're running your MEPs inside the block and you put your drywall right up against it. So you don't have to frame it out a few inches as you would like a concrete building. There's no 4 inches of framing and then your drywall and MEPs and all that. It's inside the block. So it's in the structure. It's easy to work within that. So a lot of savings throughout the way. I think it continues like anything at scale will be less and less expensive as we get, more vendors, suppliers of all raw materials, get more locations set up, that sort of thing. So hopefully costs continue to come down.
Yeah. I like to say God bless the millionaires. And the reason I say that is I think of the flat screen TV when that first came down production. And I think the number was like 1 in 20 actually worked because they're still trying to dial in how to get it right. But the people that could afford them were the millionaires, right? And so because they are the first adopters, they're the ones that buy the stuff,
Mhm.
that enables the manufacturer to keep working at it because they know there's a market. And then eventually, now that they've got it dialed in, the price of production drops so much that now everybody can afford it. You see that that's sort of where you guys are heading, that dollar per dollar, the material may be higher. But once you've got it dialed in, people understand this is an alternative and they start demanding it. Do you see the prices will start coming down in that respect?
Yes, we do. Scale is everything, right? Just like you said, manufacture will continue to be more efficient. The materials, I think, as we get more and more, again, that the price will go down. The installation will get easier and easier. I'll give you a good example. We built this apartment complex, and it was 4 different buildings. And the first apartment building, it was 55 unique pieces that built that. So there were, X amount like Legos, right? Where you have a Lego for your 16-year-old, there's more pieces that are complicated to assemble than the Legos for your, I don't know, 5-year-old. So 55 unique pieces in the first building. By the time we got to the fourth building, we'd made so many improvements, we were down to 22 pieces. So imagine 30,000 roughly square foot building built with unskilled labor and it's 22 pieces. And you remember the old like paint by color
Hold on,
thing?
22 pieces for an entire building.
An entire building.
Oh, man. Okay.
Like the header in our first building was like, I think it was like 13 pieces. We got it down to 3 pieces because we saw it get installed. We're like, what are we doing that? You see it in the field and you're like, oh my gosh. So we came with a new mold, tested it, got it down to 3 pieces. So now all of a sudden, everything we're doing is so simple and it keeps getting better and better. When you get your blocks on set, you get a set of plants with those blocks. And there's 22 different colors on the first page. For the 48-inch block, say, is blue, and then the 24-inch block is green, and then, the 2-inch block is yellow, and the truss is one thing, and the header's another color, and that's it. And so as you start to assemble it, you basically have one guy grabbing the block, but you have another guy with a glue gun, right in front of you, and you're putting them in place, rubber mallet, boom, that's it. It's the only tools needed. There's no crane needed. The heaviest piece on that building, 96-unit apartment, was like 80 pounds.
Yeah, I was gonna ask you about that. So I'm trying to get my head around, 10 guys have to manhandle this or you've got heavy equipment, but you're making this, like you said, it's almost like you're putting together literally a Lego house.
Lego house. We had a guy built about a, I don't know, 1,500 square foot house alone in one day.
alone.
alone one day, no equipment. Just stack the block. That's it. Just get the block, stack it, and boom, like it all goes together.
In terms of the mechanicals of the house, so are they hollowed out? I guess 2 questions. I guess the density of your material, is that related to where it's being built? So if I'm on a colder area, you actually have them insulated, or are they the same?
Yeah, the block is the same. We have an insulated block that we would ship to, I don't know, Canada, for
Okay.
example. And that, don't quote me, I think it was an R32 with the insulation. It was somewhere in there, high 20s, low 30s, just the block itself. Then you can have a foil and a drywall, continue to add to that.
And then when you're running in your electrical and plumbing, do they actually are there grooves inside the blocks and that's where the mechanicals go?
Exactly. You can run it right through the middle of that block.
Okay, so I'm using PVC pipe or something and a fitting is compromised somewhere, there's water coming out. How do I actually get inside to make a repair?
Just any wood saw, any saw you have, you cut right in and get right to it, no problem. There's no structural, concern you have to worry about there.
And then you would just patch it up like you would drywall, so to speak?
Just patch it up. Yep. Yep. No
Wow,
problem.
man.
You
So
could have
tell
a
me about
hurricane come through, be sitting in 6 inches of water, let it sit there for a month, and not rip out your drywall. The structure's fine. Just put the new drywall in.
so the other thing that comes to mind here, then when I look at conventional build and, builders have to build when they're building. You see them in the winter, early spring, everything they're using is moldy because it's been exposed to the rain. You don't have that problem.
Don't have that. No. Yeah. Nothing grows on this stuff. It's wild. No mold, no rot, rust. Termites I mentioned don't eat it. So it's another great benefit we have.
Wow. But you're still dealing with a composite. So is there any outgassing that you have to be concerned with in terms of a healthy home?
No, that was one of the big tests we did was fire. It's non-combustible, number one, and there is no off-gassing. That was one of the major hurdles that we had to clear for a new product. And of course, with the fire, that's, probably the toughest test you have to do. And, with drywall, with the assembly, we get up to a 2-hour fire rating. So, yeah, no concerns there either.
Is there any way right now, anywhere in particular in the US that you're really making headway? That you're
Our factory is in South Florida, so we've really tried to focus our efforts in that area for now. Just being, close by the headquarters in the factory, we can ship the block. We have a contract in Alaska, believe it or not. It was more affordable to get our block in a container, ship it there than it was for the local. It was in such a remote area than to build with a traditional, method. So we're looking at some stuff in the Caribbean. We're looking at stuff in the New England area, Texas, et cetera. But the bulk of it has been throughout Florida for now.
it'd be kind of neat to have a build off, where you've got 3D printing, you've got your design, whatever else is out there, and you say, okay, on your market set, go.
Yeah.
Build them, and it's not about
Right.
speed, because speed is part of it, because obviously that's going to be part of the equation in terms of cost, but it'd be really neat to see that you're building the same let's say we're using the same, layout, right?
Yeah.
But how the end result comes out and how
Like
they
the
would rank
front.
against one another, that'd be pretty cool.
That'd be pretty cool. Yeah, that'd be fun. Yeah. I mean, there's so many different elements to that. But look, I'm biased toward our product, but I'll zoom out. Anything we can do to improve construction, whether it's modular, prefab, 3D, new materials, I think we have to be open as an industry to try new things. I think, like you said, why don't you change? If it ain't broke, don't fix it. Right? That's been the mentality of construction. The expectation, I think, is changing for us as an industry, though. And I think with the pressures that we're facing from tariffs or immigration, building construction costs, we got to get smarter. We got to use new materials. So I'd love that competition. If you want to set it up, we'd
Eh,
love to participate.
there you go.
That's
Well,
built for TV. Yeah.
part of it too, like, we just, kind of fluffed over it, but this whole concept of the healthy home. Again, these are a couple interviews that I did near the beginning, and there was actually the Healthy Home Institute that they have guidelines that they're building up. The guy's name is Brian Johnson. I may hook you up with him because that'd be an interesting conversation for the
Sure.
two of you to have, because he's building a community of builders, doctors, people with the shared vision of how do we, it's not the perfect home, but how do we build the home that people can be healthy in? Right. So, and I was teasing him and said, "Oh, yeah, I feel good about my home. No, I want a home that I feel good in. There's a difference. Right. So, yes, I'm green and it's wonderful. Yeah, but my kids are sick inside because of
Right.
all the off gassing. So, there's that trade off between, yeah, I feel good inside the thing. Right. So, in terms of the construction, there's none of that you need to worry about because your home, the only thing is partial, maybe off gassing at the beginning, but after that, that's it. No mold, no nothing.
Yeah, basically, when it comes out of the mold, out of the fact it's a heat compression, mold, heat injected, no off gassing to worry about. You can
Wow.
install it right away, and you're good to go.
So again, I can see the blocks. I now have an understanding of how you do this. You mentioned drywall. Am I just screwing it directly into the wall?
Right in, drywall screw right into the block.
And that
Yep.
doesn't affect the
Mm,
integrity of the block whatsoever?
does not. Nope.
Okay. Now, is drywall something that you would do for aesthetics, or do I even need to do it then?
Don't even need to do it. We built about 200 structures in the Middle East, believe it or not, with this, and I don't know, 50% didn't have drywall. We had a roll on, like, I don't know, an eighth inch sort of roll paint that we applied. And on the interior and the exterior, building code is a little different there. Just rolled that on though, and that was it. That's all they needed. And you'd never know the difference. It looks like a faux paint, sort of finish, however you want it to look. So you do not need drywall.
Man,
And for
that's
like
wonderful.
disaster relief, I mean, imagine a container with enough block to build, 4 houses, all the basics. You got your windows, your doors are there, toilets, basic MEPs. Give people a chance to rebuild their own house. It's going to be really strong. It's going to be permanent and they can continue to improve it over time. But in a container, you can ship numerous houses on site and you don't need skilled workers to go, install it all.
I'm gonna ask the question, I kinda know the answer, and it's gonna pull upon your experience in government, okay?
Okay.
Why isn't California banging on your fucking door right now saying, "Get your stuff out here, we need homes to be," and not just you, it could be 3D printing, it could be all these revolutionary new build designs that could be building in a fraction of the time. Why aren't they beating a path to your door?
We reached out, still waiting for that real phone call. Maybe we didn't get to the right people, but I think there's so many opportunities to look at alternate technologies. And what happens is, yeah, they mean well, but then it's the private developers. And then what do? They're buying the land, they're trying to get it entitled, trying to get it fixed, they're trying to get more density. And they just end up reverting to their old ways, often. I think without a real push, almost mandate from the government that, hey, we're going to give you more density if you use a new building technology that is more sustainable and stronger and not going to burn down like this, then you get that, like that carrot and stick, I think, is going to be needed to really push the industry forward.
Yeah, but you need governance that actually has forethought to look ahead. I don't wanna say corrupt, whatever, that they're doing things without being influenced to keep it status quo.
Yep.
Is that fair to say? Okay.
100%.
So, just before we sign off here, I wouldn't have done a good job if I didn't plug your book, A Divided Union, because I see this kinda ties in to what we're talking about right now, the fact that it's almost like your hands are tied, like you've got a solution, but for whatever reason, governance is holding it back. How did you deal with that when you were a senator, correct?
A congressman,
Yeah,
and
you must have been biting your tongue so often, or were you like me? I call it a Homer Simpson moment where did I just think that out loud with words, or is it still between my ears?
right.
Like, how do you keep yourself back from out going crazy?
I got into public service naive. I was 28. All right. I thought I was going to change the world and solve problems. Right. I mean, that to me that's the point, is to solve problems. And I got there and I realized it's more about being partisan and getting reelected. And it was very frustrating because there's so many problems that actually aren't that partisan that we can agree on, that we can make headway. But then we let the 20% that divide us dominate the conversation. And the reason I wrote the book was because I realized that it's not just bad people that are in government. That's easy. That's a cop out. Oh, they're a bunch of dumb, lazy, corrupt. That's not true. Of course, that does exist, but that's not the majority. The incentive structure is really leaning and pushing toward bad behavior. So, in other words, the incentive to raise more money, the incentive to be more partisan, the gerrymandering of the districts, the lack of relationships, right? Like no one lives in DC anymore. 100 years ago, you would live in DC. You'd get to know each other. You could be, one party and I'm the other party, but we're neighbors, we're friends, we play golf, we smoke cigars or whatever. We realize we're not that far apart. We both have kids we care about. We want a better world for them, better opportunity, and we solve problems. Now all of a sudden, no one lives there. And there was a congressman in the 1970s that said the jet engine killed democracy. And I didn't understand what he meant till I realized that now all of a sudden it's expected you fly home every single weekend and you are not there anymore. And your constituents want you back home because they don't want you to lose touch with them, which I understand. But what's happened now is now they don't know each other. And now they can go on TV and call each other names and there's no consequences. And the division is and the hatred is palpable now in DC, where we hate the other party more than we do our real adversaries, across the pond. So it's got to change. I always thought that an emergency, a disaster, an attack would unite our country, and then COVID hit and it actually divided us worse. And I fear that, God forbid, there's another war, that you're going to have one party saying, oh, they were distracted. They weren't paying attention, this and that. They were old. They were, whatever it is, and blame a party for what happened in a situation. So I don't know what brings us back from the brink at this point. I'm very alarmed at our democracy and very concerned with it.
I think back to 9/11, and again, from a Canadian's perspective, when we were watching it happen in lifetime, and then subsequently, the days, weeks afterwards. And that was that moment in time where America was galvanized. Like
Yeah.
everybody pulled together. And if there was ever a time to re-spark that feeling of what it means to be American, I'm not African American, Polish American, like what it meant to be American. Because again, from here, our dumpster fire that's unfolding here in Canada, I still look to the States as being the shiny city on the hill. And at that moment in time, you guys had it all together. Like everybody was coming together for that one common good. And then it just kind of slipped away. I don't know. I don't know what the answer is, man, but I don't know what to say.
Well, the book tries to outline some solutions to the incentives. So it is an incentive to be partisan, but rather incentivized to be a problem solver. You can still be partisan, or you can still have your beliefs, but let's solve a problem. And let's have an incentive structure where people are elected for solving problems, not yelling on TV at the other party.
Yeah, for optics. Let's do a lane change here because I don't want to leave this on a downer. What do
Yeah.
you do to, like, you're so focused on the build, you do charity work as well. What does Patrick do just for shits and giggles to unwind and refocus?
So I used to fish and dive spearfish a lot. Then I got married to a vegetarian, so that's been cut back a little bit. So I play. Do you know the sport paddle tennis? Have you seen that?
Oh, yeah, yeah, for seniors, what's it called? Yeah,
There's pickleball, right?
that's what I meant, yeah.
Indoor, and there's another one, paddle. So it's like tennis and racquetball kind of. So I play that. I try to read a lot. Live in South Florida, so I'm outdoors quite a bit. I love boating, fishing still. Hopefully this summer I'll get over to the Bahamas a little bit and do some diving. So anything outdoors is how I unwind.
Yeah, man, Florida's got it dialed in, man. That was, again, I don't wanna get into the politics, but that was the promised land. Yeah, man, you gotta go.
Well,
So, we could have another interview about you and your wife. I take it you still eat meat?
I do, but when she cooks, she's the boss, right? So
Yeah, and when she's not looking, you're chowing
yeah,
down Big
exactly.
Macs. Okay, I
Just
get it.
yeah.
One last question, Patrick, before we call it quits, and, I want you to pretend, and I hope this doesn't happen for, like, many, many decades, but you're at St. Peter's Gate,
Mhm.
right? St. Peter, he's got his iPad, and you got Patrick Murphy, and he's scrolling through. Oh, yeah. Well, that's pretty interesting. Keeps going, keeps going. He says, "Patrick, come over here. I want you to look at this." And he's scrolling through everything that you've done.
Yeah.
And then he looks you right in the eye and he says, "You know what? No, no, not yet. What's that not yet that you haven't done yet?"
Transform the built environment. It hasn't changed, right? We have a long way to go. Basic need in people's life is housing, having a roof over their head. I want more people, especially those in need, to have a better quality house that's sustainable, that they're proud of, that isn't, having an off gas issue or, some problem, some mold issue, termite issue. We can change construction and give people a home that they're proud of it. And that helps uplift all people. We have a lot of work to do, but we can do it.
Good answer. Patrick, I want to say that, I was kind of leery about spending time with you. I thought after I'm going to have to disinfect, get a shower. Guys, the Congressman, I don't know. But I've genuinely enjoyed this. This was a really great conversation.
Likewise. Thank you for your time and opportunity.
Yeah, I hope to be continued.
I hope so. Thank you.
Thanks for listening to Total Straight Talk. Make sure to like, comment, and share this episode on your favorite social media platform. And don't forget to subscribe to the podcast, available wherever you get your podcast streaming days. Until next time, keep building smarter. This episode is made possible by our sponsor, Sound Capital, funding built for builders.